Well, thank you all for joining. Thank you very much. We're very excited to be back today with the second episode of the talks. So today we'll be talking about the challenges of ASO for mobile games in 2020 with our four exclusive ASO experts. So if you're ready, we'll begin with the presentations. First, we have Chingiz Talybov with us. He's Senior ASO Manager at Pixonic. So hi, Chingiz. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Hi, everyone.
Can you maybe present yourself, say a bit words about yourself?
Maybe. I've been an ASO manager at Pixonic for like a little bit more than a year. And the ASO experience in altogether is a few years, but it was not all connected to the games. It was different kind of apps. So I know a bit here and there.
Great. Thank you very much. We also have Noga Szpiro, I hope I say your name right, from StoreMaven, who's Senior Enterprise ASO Consultant. So, Noga.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
I've had a small issue with my microphone, so hopefully you still hear me.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, perfect. So nice to see everyone. I've been working in ASO for the last 4 years almost, and I work at StoreMaven, where we help some of the biggest game developers out there optimize their stores and run A/B tests, and also measure different ASO efforts.
Thanks, Noga. We also have with us Michal Mroz. I also hope I said your name right.
Actually, it's Michal, but I know it.
Sorry, Michal, entonces.
Michal.
Okay, well, welcome, Michal. And so you're Senior ASO Manager at 10 Square Games. Can you say a few words about yourself?
I've been working on ASO for about 3 years now. Previously, I was working also on SEO, but more technically related things like rich snippets, like schema.org snippets. So not necessarily things related to ASO or games, but I can say that transition was quite smooth.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, we have Daniel Peris with us, our CEO and co-founder at TheTool. Hello, Daniel. Can you please say a few words about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I've been in the SEO industry for more than 10 years and in the ASO industry since 2013, when in that moment I started building my own mobile apps and games. And I only could find a way to grow them. And the way to do it was ASO. And right now I run TheTool, which is an ASO platform. And I also run Picasso, which is an ASO and app marketing agency offering from ASO to user acquisition services to all kinds of companies.
Great, thank you very much, Danny. So thank you all for being in with us today. We're going to start with the questions if you're all ready. So let's begin. First of all, for how long have you been involved in ASO or in mobile games marketing in general? We already heard a bit when you presented yourself, but if you can tell us a bit more. I don't know who would like to start. Danny, do you want to start? How long have you been working in ASO?
Okay, I will start. I've been doing ASO since 2013. Then I started with my own mobile apps and games. And when I thought I was ready to offer ASO services, I started doing it at the end of 2013, more or less. So almost 7 years in the ASO industry.
Great. Michal, what about you?
As I said before, I've been working in this industry for about 3 years. At first, it was just a keyword-related job, but then I worked more and more on improving visual assets as well. And now also co-working with the user acquisition team as we try to consolidate our efforts to become real growth hackers.
Great, thanks. Chin, what about you?
Well, I've been working on ASO since 2016, I guess I could say like this, and a little bit more than a year from today, I was lucky enough to get to Pixonic and work with robots. So I guess my gaming ASO experience is something around a year.
Okay, thanks. And Noga, what about you?
I've been working in ASO for almost 4 years now. I help brands like Ubisoft, Social Point, Wooga, EA develop strategies to optimize your store and general ASO efforts in terms of finding growth opportunities and analyzing impact of different ASO efforts.
Great, thank you. Then you must all have a lot of experience to share with us today. So to continue, how do you guys approach measuring the impact of ASO in general? If you want to start, Noga.
Sure. So actually 4 years ago when we started, we almost only looked at CVR. And whenever we had an update of the app or the store assets, we looked at what happened to CVR. Did it increase or did it decrease? And recently for the last already few years, it's been a process, but we realized that CVR is a very important metric, but it's one among many. And we now understand that it's not the best thing to just analyze each metric on its own, because as we all know, the App Store is an ecosystem and everything impacts everything. So we are trying to kind of look at everything at the same time and understand what type of events are happening and how they impacted which metrics.
Great. Do you guys think the same, or do you have anything more to add? Anything different you would do? Yeah, go ahead, Danny.
When we can talk about a lot of different ASO KPIs, as Noga said, CVR is one of the most important metrics because if you improve CVR, you can get a lot of more downloads with the same amount of traffic. So CVR is a powerful ASO KPI. But I think the most important ASO KPI is related to business, because ASO is not about downloads or it's not about rankings. ASO is about business. And so you have to take a look at the revenue the organic traffic is bringing. And in the case you are running user acquisition paid campaigns, you have to take a look at how ASO impacts the costs of bringing that users from Facebook ads or TikTok ads or whatever. And for sure, CVR is one of the most important metrics. But also taking a look into the business, the revenue, and the impact that ASO has on the paid campaigns.
Thank you, Danny. So it's more about the general picture then. Do you guys have anything else to add? Feel free to tell anything if you want to speak, or if not, I will just continue with the questions. Okay, I'll go on. So next question, what do you think about the value of featuring in 2020? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it becoming harder or easier to get featured? Can you please share your experience? I don't know if you want to start, maybe Chingiz?
Okay. Well, featuring is featuring, and everyone will still want to get it because it's basically like installs for free and increasing your share of voice of your app. Featuring is still a valuable source of installs, and I guess in 2020 it will be even harder to get featured on both platforms because of, well, if not everything else, simply increasing amount of apps in both of stores. But there's one thing we need to remember when we're talking about featuring, and in Robots we see that a lot, that together with featuring we can have not only like pros, like additional installs, reviews and stuff. But we can have some problems with that. You can get like low quality traffic that will increase your crashes and ANRs, and this will impact your ASO in total, especially in Google. So featuring is a very tricky thing to have. You need to be prepared to get featured. Yeah, I guess this is basically what I think about it.
Okay, thanks. Do you all feel the same way, or? Yeah, Michal, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, as Chin said, it's a double-edged sword. So it's a great way, for example, to start your new game. When you start with featuring, you can get a lot of traffic that you will need at the start. And this is something that probably can go bad. But sometimes, as Chin said, you can get a low quality traffic. You can then get a lot of crashes, a lot of INRs. Your retention might nosedive. And then you can see something we call featuring hangover. So you can see the bad results of the featuring for a weeks after the featuring, and you may need this time to recover, maybe even invest some money in user acquisition to bring your organic results to the state before the featuring. So yeah, this is something cool, something you definitely need to pursue, but something you have to be prepared with. And I think in 2020 it will be a bit harder to get featuring because competition is bigger as never, and the traffic from the featurings might be a little bit decreased, because what we see, for example, in just a Christmas featuring, it was more than 100 apps per collection. So the impact was much smaller than in the previous years.
Okay, thank you. Have anything to add, or Noga? I don't know.
Nothing from a side.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with what Michal said. I just wanted to add that from my point of view, we try to analyze what type of or the different types of featuring, because from our point of view, not all featuring were born equal. And we often see that some of the more niche type of featuring actually have a larger impact on the KPIs that our partners are after. So for example, if we have a cat themed game and they're featured on cat related games, apps that we love or stuff like that, they will get more qualified users, because not only impressions will go up, the installs will go up as well. So I think it's important to look at the impact of the specific featuring that you received had on your app. And then I definitely agree with what the previous speaker said before me about the fact that it's probably gonna get harder because of the competition. I think it's important, in order to get featured more often, to try to take advantage of the features that the different platforms are giving apps. So for example, we saw that with Apple, it was AR apps, or apps that support AR or dark mode. These are some of the stuff that Apple notices.
Okay, thank you very much, Noga. So I have a question for you right now, actually, about visual assets, A/B testing, conversion rates. Can you please tell me a bit more about your experience and your thoughts about it? About A/B testing and conversion rates, about visual assets.
Sure. Should I start, or?
You start.
Okay, so you said about conversion rates and visual assets, right? Yeah. So from my point of view, visual assets are a super important thing in the mobile marketing world, specifically because that's the thing that users sees before they download, and that's that might be the only information they get about the app before deciding whether to install or drop. The visual assets relate directly to conversion rate, just like UA ads relate to click-through rate. So I think this is the correlation. In terms of A/B testing, obviously we use A/B testing to decide what to put in the App Store to optimize for conversion rate. But also we use A/B testing to get to know users better in order to develop a long-term strategy in ASO. It's not only important to optimize the CVR right now, we want to deep dive into funnel metrics in tests to understand how we can continuously grow the App Store metrics.
Okay, thank you. Guys, do you have anything you want to say? Danny, do you have? Yeah, please go ahead.
Regarding the A/B testing and the conversion rate and so on, you all know that Google Play Console has its own system to A/B test some elements from the store, like the icon or the screenshots or the short description. And for the Google Play case, the visual assets are a powerful ASO stuff for conversion rate, but also for visibility. For example, in Google Play, you can A/B test two icons, and you can see that one icon, the icon A, for example, is bringing more and more impressions and downloads. So it's important to test, not to turn crazy and testing everything, but you have to test to try to find the best possible option or the better conversion, the better option with the best conversion rate. Textual fields or text for ASO are very relevant, mostly for search, but for conversion rate and for visibility in the browse or the explore side of the ASO game, A/B testing and visual assets and finding the right ones is crucial, in my opinion, for ASO. For the Google Play, you have the Google Play experiments, but for the App Store, you have to work with, for example, StoreMaven to A/B test the icon, which is, in my opinion, the first thing you have to test. And then, for example, test screenshots, which are also a very important element for conversion rate on the App Store.
Thank you, Danny. Michal, Chin, do you have anything you'd like to add? Yes, go ahead.
Well, I agree with you guys. I would just like to add that you always should check your experiment, check your results before the experiment and after experiment. The more time you can check, the better. We usually look before 2 weeks and after 2 weeks, because what we found, sometimes estimations that are provided by Google Play experiments are totally off with the real results that we see after the experiment. It's probably because we don't really know which cohorts, what are they, who goes to the experiment and who we see in this experiment. We would like to know if the traffic is more organic or more from the paid campaigns, but we don't know. And then we see something like estimations says we should have 15 to 20% improvement after the experiment, and we see that we're going down significantly, because probably we tested some things that maybe was appealing to the test group from the paid campaigns, but when we finished the experiment and we cut off the paid campaigns, we have only organic traffic, and it was totally off for this type of users. So always, guys, check your results before and after the experiment, because it might be a bit deceitful.
Thanks, Michal, for the precision. So let's go for the next question. So the stores are becoming more and more competitive. ASO teams are more and more sophisticated. So how do you get ideas to differentiate your games in the crowded categories? Chin, do you want to start?
Yeah, why not? First of all, we always trying to be up to date with the materials that are posted in blogs of, for example, TheTool blog or other blogs of ASO, with ideas about something you should try to show to your like potential users. Add to this, we have ASO art team that always try to think of some new ways to introduce our product to users. Some new angles or strong points of our game that we want to show on maybe screenshot or maybe feature graphic or within a video. And all of this, more or less, going through the A/B tests in Google or maybe like in in StoreMaven. If we have something big to show, we really want to be sure that our audience will appreciate that they will like it, because at the end it's all about increasing conversion rate and keeping your users happy. So yeah, we're trying to monitor what's there in App Store, especially to the apps that we feel competitors to ourselves are using some new ways to introduce themselves. And this is basically it. We try to keep it up to date as good as we can.
Thanks, Shin. Danny, do you have anything to say, or Michal maybe?
Well, and in my case, sorry, in my case, I always try to think out of the box. For example, I always try to test things no one has ever tested before, and the mostly of the times they don't work, but sometimes they work. For example, and this is, I think this is a question you will make us later, Mod, but for example, building backlinks to a Google Play app is something very powerful. I think no one or almost no one is applying in the industry. And for sure, thinking out of the box, being creative. And what Chingiz said, it's all about user happiness. If users are happy, they are reviewing your game, they are adding good ratings to your game, your game will have a good average rating. And if your product has no bugs or crashes and so on, the users will be more happy. And I think this is something app stores will take into account very strong this year, which is the product quality, and something I always call the user happiness. That maybe is not the best word to say this, but if your users are happy, and you try to think out of the box and apply new techniques or crazy ideas you have in mind, and it's about testing, because you can have 100 ideas, but you have to test all of them to find only one that is working. It's being creative too.
100%. I definitely agree with everything that Daniel said. I think thinking out of the box is sometimes really difficult, but especially if you work with the same app for years, trying to find new ideas that are out of the box can be complicated. But I try to follow 4 steps that always kind of bring me new ideas, because these are ever evolving. So the first one is going to the product team and asking them what type of features are going to be released in the next quarter, or what type of game updates are planned to happen. So this is the first one. The second one is looking at what users have to say, which I think one of you said already, but kind of browsing through reviews, blogs, whatever, wherever users speak, they will give you some ideas to what they like about the app. And this could be converted into hypotheses that can then be tested. The third one is looking at competition, be it within the category or with similar categories, not to be a copycat, but either trying to see what they're doing that could be applied to your game, or trying to see what they're doing that you could do the opposite. And the fourth one is looking at UA ads. So UA ads, by their nature, are kind of suffering from ad fatigue after a while, and UA is always kind of evolving and trying to optimize for the entire funnel from the UA ad to the store is also something that is always kind of low-hanging fruit. So looking at what's happening in the UA side, and then how could it be applied, or kind of taking some ideas to apply to the App Store.
Thank you, Noga. Michal, do you have anything to add?
Well, speaking of ideas, I can tell you that it might come from the very strange places, from everyday life. Of course, we observe our competitors, we see what they do, but we always take the rule that you have to be familiar with unique, or maybe even unique yet familiar. Sometimes you can get inspired by the strange things, like one of the most successful of my icons was come from when I see some Vista from the non-gaming magazine, and I come with it to the graphic designer. He tried to make it to something that may work for the game. I thought it can work because it would be small when you decrease the scale to the smartphone, to the mobile device. But the result was that we have the best growth from the all icons we ever made. So yeah, you have to trust sometimes even something you don't like. You have to remember this is not necessarily your taste, that your users share the same taste with you, and you have to just test.
Okay, thank you guys for the great tips. So let's move on to another topic. Do you think that Huawei AppGallery can become a serious competitor to Google Play or the App Store? What do you think about that? Does anyone want to start with this topic? Danny?
Huawei AppGallery in the short term is not competing with Google Play or App Store, mostly with Google Play Store. But Huawei is a big, really big, huge company with a lot of resources, billions and billions of dollars and infinite resources almost. And for sure, as there are a lot of Huawei devices in the whole world, Huawei has sold and sells a lot of smartphones. For sure, the Huawei AppGallery is taking an important, in my opinion, is taking in the short term a small piece of the Android traffic, but we have to see what happens in the mid-long term, because Huawei is a very huge company with a lot of resources, and I'm very curious to see what's going with this.
Thank you, Danny. Do you guys feel the same about AppGallery? Do you have any insight to share with us about that?
Go ahead.
No, Noga. Noga, go ahead.
Me? Okay, mine is short. I just wanted to say that from my point of view, I feel like there's a hunger for a new platform to market apps, especially because of the 30% fees of Google and App Store. And I think we've already started seeing more and more platforms emerge, but nothing really held on. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see kind of what solution will emerge. I'm not sure that Huawei will be the right thing to take off, especially in the US and Europe.
Okay, thanks, Noga. Chin, what do you have to add?
Yeah, first of all, I want to agree with Daniel about Huawei AppGallery. For now is for sure not a competitor for Google Play. It's just too simple for it. It's too small and too simple. But if we take it in a long term, keeping in mind that Huawei is one of the biggest phone producer in the world, and keeping in mind again that they are going to invest resources in their operation system and in their like ecosystem, including AppGallery. There is a possibility that if they will keep doing this as they announced it, we will see an increasing share of Android traffic relocated in AppGallery. This is, of course, not something that will for sure will happen in the future, but it's more than possible. So I think AppGallery in the long term can be something you should definitely invest your time in, like uploading your app to see if you can have some additional installs.
Michal, do you have anything to add?
I agree in general. I think in long term, Huawei has got what it takes to become a serious competitor, but maybe not in 2020. I just wondering what tactic they will choose to expand their influence on the global markets, because I think in China they can easily dominate the market and fill the gap for that is because there is no Google. There's no Google. But what they do to dominate the global market? Are they going to such an aggressive strategy like, for example, Epic Games Store, that they try to lure developers to make exclusive games only for the Epic Games Store for at least a year? If they able to lure such developers like Ubisoft, like Blizzard, to make exclusive games and the good games, not some short, casual phone games, then I think they got what it takes to become a serious competitor. But as we already agreed, not in 2020. Maybe for mid-sized developers or small developers, it's a good year to enter the Huawei AppGallery and maybe make some advantage before the big guys are coming.
Okay, thanks, Michal, for the tips. So now let's move on to Google Play Console and App Store Connect. So what do you guys expect as for new features or feature updates on Google Play Console and App Store Connect? Do you have any expectations on this?
For example, me? Okay. I can tell you guys my wishes for the App Store Connect and the Google Play Console, which is not what I expect. So my wishes is more real, accurate data. I think I remember we talked about this in the first episode, of the talks. But the thing is, we don't have the right data to take the right decisions, or we have cut information that is helpful, sorry, but it's not as helpful as it should be. This is regarding my wishes and what do I expect for the stores, new features or features updates. I think nothing special or awesome is coming in the next few months. This is my opinion. Apple updated the App Store some months ago with iOS 13. The App Store hasn't changed for example, in a year, and the Google Play Console, apart from the bugs or the spaces in the data, hasn't launched anything important, in my opinion. So what I wish is more real, accurate data, and what I expect is nothing spectacular from my point of view.
Thank you, Danny. Noga, do you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. But since Daniel started talking about his wishes, I'm also gonna share some of my wishes, which is looking forward for the time where we'll be able to have a separate store per funnel. So just like, I think it was Michal that mentioned it before, in Google Experiment, you cannot test for the different funnels of users. This is something that we often see having a huge effect on the performance of asset. So what works for organic users, or even more specifically, what worked for users that you targeted from simulation users is not going to be the same as a broader audience, or I'll take my example from before, cat game lovers. So if we'll, or in the day that we'll be able to optimize the store per channel that we define, I think we'll see great things. And I think Google is not that far from it with the custom store listing. I think this is one step towards that world, but I think it's a long way to go, and yeah, we'll be waiting.
Okay, thanks, Noga. Do you have anything else on the wish list, Chin?
I hope you're sending it to the platforms after.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, I have lots of things on the wish list, to be honest. But if we're gonna talk about like the main things, is I would really like to see any improvements on Google Play experiments mechanism, like any. It's so important, like in your day-to-day work, so that like anything they will improve will like drastically improve the quality of testing, and this can have a huge impact on our results. And as all in Russia, I guess we really want Apple search ads. Apple search ads in Russia. Come on, guys. We saw that you guys are hiring someone in Moscow for Apple search. Like, come on, launch it already. We want it here.
Okay, thanks, Jin. Michal, anything else? Another wish?
Maybe I start with expectations. I have one expectation for Google Play, and this is autoplay of the trailers. I'm very curious how it turns out. I've heard it's already A/B tested in some markets. I didn't see it in Poland, but I'm very curious how it turns out. And in case of wish list, I have one wish, maybe even a wild fantasy, to see to see deeper segmentations in the Google Play acquisition reports, because now we can see a global keywords with some numbers, but we don't know where exactly all these keywords are coming from. And one level upper, we don't see, we have two segments, search and explore, and we neither do know where all this traffic are coming from. Is there from the category pages, or from collections, or from featurings? And would be extremely helpful to know exactly where these traffic are coming from. So yeah, I don't expect it from Google too early, but I really would love to get it. And of course, I would like these numbers to be reliable, as Danny said.
Okay, great. Then let's all cross fingers for this wish to come true. So let's go for the next question. How do you keep up with the rapid changes in ASO in the App Store and in Google Play? How do you stay up to date? Noga, do you want to start with that?
I think I'll let the others.
Okay, who would like to say something about that?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. The app stores are changing and evolving. That's for sure. And in order to be up to date with the changes they make in terms of ASO, you have to be very active in terms of ASO. For example, in my case, I'm lucky and I work with a lot of clients and customers, and I also have a lot of mobile apps and games and so on. So every day I'm checking a lot of stuff, and for sure I'm losing things that change and I don't realize, because it's impossible, I think, for anyone to be completely up to date with everything all the time. But being active on ASO and reading some blogs and taking being part of some communities where people, this is something I want to mention, that the ASO industry community is awesome in terms of sharing stuff and sharing experiments and sharing data. And that's, I think that those are the two ways to be up to date with ASO: being very active on ASO, and also being part or participating or just reading what the ASO community are posting or sharing with the rest of the world.
Definitely. Thanks, Danny. I think we all agree on that. Do you have anything else to add about that, or can I just go on with the other questions? Okay, so I go on with the next one. Do you think that the Explore browse traffic will keep growing in 2020? Michal, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I can. I think browse explore traffic will continue to grow at the expense of search traffic. Both stores seem to seek more control over what's being served to user, and the browse segment gives it to them. So what I mean, with so much, with machine learning being so advanced now, they can push further the personalization. They can serve the better, more curated content to the users, and this is something I think is now in the strategic thing for both Google Play and App Store. On the other hand, and it's something they have complete control over. But on the other hand, search is a thing that can be manipulated a little bit by guys like us ASO managers. So I think they're going to push a little bit further with browse traffic. They focus more and more on editorials, especially you can see it on the App Store. And I think it's going, and this trend will be expanded in the 2020.
Okay, thank you, Michal. Do you have anything to add?
I completely agree with what Michal said. 100% agree.
Okay, great. Do you have anything else, guys, to say? No? Okay, let's go on. We have some questions from the panel, so I'm going to ask you now. So how do you guys test your ideas during a soft launch phase? So how would you do that? Noga?
Yeah, sure, I can start. So I think during soft launch, so the idea of soft launch is to test out your assets to prepare for the global launch. So I think the first part of it is to identify the right countries to soft launch in, so that you can actually test out to mimic preferences in your target market. So this is something that we invest some effort in. And then regarding the marketing assets specifically, we want to, during the soft launch, it's less about being detailed perfect, and it's more about testing different concepts. So I think during pre-launch, it's a very hectic, stressful period for a lot of game developers. And I think in this stage, it's okay to not have completely finished and polished assets. You just want to make sure that the concept that you're going to market the app with is going to appeal to the large variety of users. One other thing to mention here is that a lot of times right after launch, developers experience a pretty steep CVR decrease. So I still consider that first few weeks after launch part of the launch or pre-launch period. And this decrease happens because the first few weeks you really target your core audience, and these users find you. And the message that appeal to these users are not necessarily the same messages that will appear to a larger target audience. So at this period, it's really a crucial time to test out how to appeal to a broader audience compared to what you first get in the initial launch period.
Okay, thank you. Do you guys have anything to add about that?
I can't talk about soft launch because for the case of my own apps and games, I always start with global launch because I'm very impatient. But the thing is, as Noga said, that it's about testing concepts and is testing some countries or working hard on localization. It's not about translation, it's about localization, not only for the text, also for the visual assets. But for some clients we have on the agency, we do the soft launch, and completely agree with what Noga said. It's about testing concepts and finding the things that are not working properly before the global launch.
Okay, thank you, Danny. So now I'm going to ask you to share with us any ASO tip or hacks for games that you would like to share with the audience. So if you have anything to share with us, Danny, do you want to start?
No, I want to finish.
Oh, you want to finish? Okay.
No, I want to give I want to listen to other speakers' opinion and hacks and so on.
Okay, so Michal, if you want to start, do you have any hacks or tips?
Well, I would say I don't know any game-specific ASO tips, but speaking about games, maybe there are some indie developers. I would give advice that most mobile gaming companies neglect. Care for visibility outside of stores. There are plenty of places where you can raise awareness about your game for free or almost free. There are services like GamesPress, like Reddit, like Facebook groups, and so on. And if you operate on a shoestring budget and you don't have much money to marketing, you can go to Reddit or use a GamesPress to let people know about your game. You can make a great game, but it won't be that great if no one knows about it. And you have to somehow fill the gap for the user acquisition and drive more traffic. Of course, if you're able to get a featuring on the start, that's great. But if not, you have to find other way to drive user acquisition to your game. Back in the days, like maybe 2017, it was quite easy to make a story from zero to hero. You can just, with good ASO strategy and with a little bit of luck, you can have advanced to the very nice results. Now it's not possible. You have to invest in UA user acquisition, and how do you do? It's up to you.
Okay, thanks, Michal. Chin, do you have any hacks to share with us?
Not sure if it's a hack, but as was said before, I would advise to pay more attention to localization of your graphical assets. Try to add something like country specific on your screenshots or on your feature graphic, starting with the most obvious thing, like a flag, for example. We've tested this approach and see quite impressive results. So this is something to keep in mind. And one more thing, I guess, is don't be afraid to highlight your product strong points on your store creative assets. Like if you have lots of users all over the globe, say about it. If you were featured in Google Play or in Apple, or if you somehow get an editor's choice, don't forget to tell about it on a screenshot, because people would like to see it. They would like to have proof that your app is it's a high quality app that was nominated, get some prizes. So yeah, I guess those are my hacks, if you can call it like that.
Great, thanks, Chin. Noga, what would you have to say and share with us?
I think so. My main tip would be try to break the silos. This could be specifically kind of getting ideas for what to put in the App Store and how to keep the App Store refreshed, but also in terms of measurement. So trying to look outside of ASO, for example, look at UA team, what they're doing and how it impacts your organics and vice versa. And also maybe even outside of the App Store. So looking at what other events are happening that could impact what you're doing. I think that's my tip for 2020.
Great. So now, Danny, you can go on with your tips and hacks.
My tips and hacks are valid or can be used for mobile apps and games, both, because there's no such a big difference in terms of ASO for apps and for games. It's almost the same. And for example, for the App Store, working some brands of competitors in the secondary languages that can help you rank for more and more keywords. For example, you know that for the English from the USA, you can also work the Spanish from Mexico to amplify or to increase the number of keywords your app or game can rank for. This is for the App Store, which is, in my opinion, the much more simple. The ASO on the App Store is much more simple than the ASO on the Google Play Store. And for the Google Play Store, you can do magic. For example, you can use HTML tags on your listing, on the description. You can use H1, H2, and H3 to highlight the more relevant keywords. You can also use bold. You can also use italic. And this is something the users are not reading because mostly of the users or the vast majority of users don't read the description. This is something basically for the Google Play crawler or bots or whatever. So use HTML tags on your description. In the next week, I think we are posting an infographic of a study we ran about the use of HTML tags on the Google Play Store descriptions. And we have found some things very interesting, like for example, that almost no one is using HTML tags on the Google Play Store. And I've realized that using them can boost your keyword rankings. And also, I also want to talk about backlinks, which is something, Michal and Chin, that we should talk about someday. But backlinks can, if added in the right places, can give you visibility out of the stores, as Michal said. Also can bring downloads if added in the right places. For example, big media or game or app review sites, which there are a lot of sites that can review your app and game and add a backlink for their users to download your product. But also backlinks is a powerful signal of authority for the Google Play Store. In my opinion, Google is a big system. The Google Web and the Google Play Store are connected somehow. And the more backlinks your game or app has pointing to it, the more credibility or the more trustability, the more authority your product has on the Play Store, and the more visibility. These are very quick hacks to apply on the Google Play Store. It's very easy to add HTML tags. I recommend you all to try it, to test it, because it can bring good results with a very small investment, just time. And I'm talking about minutes of your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Danny. So let's finish with one last question, which is about the topic we chose for this webinar. So what do you think is the main challenge you will have in ASO for mobile games in 2020 in a few words? So Danny, if you'd like to start, what do you think is the most?
the main challenges of ASO for mobile games in 2020 are the same challenges apps are going to have this year, and it's the main challenges are competition. The app stores are more and more crowded with more apps and games. 7 years ago, I played alone almost on the Google Play Store. But nowadays you have a lot of competition, and you have a lot of competition with a lot of money. Your competitors can have big budgets to run UA paid campaigns. Your competition for sure has a lot of resources to build a product the users will love, and the way to beat those challenges are, in my opinion, and as I always say, it's creativity, and as I said before, thinking out of the box. Don't try to replicate what others do, because normally you are not going to have the same results. Being creative and thinking out of the box are, in my opinion, in my humble, as I always say, opinion, the keys to try to beat those challenges. The main challenges, competition, and the reality that we don't have, or almost we don't have the right data to take the right decisions. These are, in my opinion, the main challenges.
So, guys, do you agree that competition is the main challenge, or do you have any other challenge in mind?
I think from my perspective, one of the main challenges is measurement. Specifically in ASO and in the App Store in general, we don't want to attribute another effort to ASO, and we don't want the ASO efforts to be attributed to another effort. So, for example, we saw that happening over and over again with UA and organics and the impact there. So we really want to, in 2020, try to understand what impacts what, and be able to attribute the specific impact to the specific effort.
Okay, thanks, Noga. Michal, do you have anything to add?
I would add to what Danny said that as reports says, now players in major markets, which of course monetizes the best, are less eager to try new games because they already have long-time favorites. So we have to push harder with our SO to be found and to retain them. Other thing is that the UA costs are getting bigger and bigger. So another challenge is to lower the cost of the user acquisition through ASO efforts. And last thing that comes to my mind is that the advancement of Google crawlers, because now optimizing, we have to optimize store listings for crawlers that not only seek for keywords and long tails, but also for context. They try to decipher even maybe icons and screenshots and captions. So we have to play the game and try to find a solution that that our games are familiar for them, yet unique, because otherwise we can be just labeled as another copycat.
Okay, thank you, Michal. Chin, do you have any challenge in mind?
Yep. As everyone has already said, the competition is a big thing, especially since you need to fight your way through the big guys with big UA budgets and like big teams for paid UA, ASO, and some other levels. But I want to add to this that bugs within the app stores can be quite painful for you to understand if you're doing things right or wrong. If I remember correctly, there is a bug in App Store Connect that is still live for like a year. and it's not been fixed still. And these are the bugs we know about. Who knows if there is like something else that messed up your numbers completely. Sooner or later, maybe we will find out that the data we're seeing right now is incorrect or corrupted in some way. This is something you always need to keep in mind when you're trying to measure your like impact or the whole value of your work.
Okay, thank you, Chin. So a lot of challenges, but you guys gave us a lot of tips and great insights today. So thank you very much to the four of you. I hope you had a great time. And do you have anything to add, or just thank you very much for joining?
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to hear everyone and to get a chance to also share my opinion. I also wanted to say that we're going to be at MGS next week in San Francisco. So if anyone is there and wants to speak, let us know. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Guy.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you.
Yeah.